Hi guys, I miss you all so much. I'm going to read a chapter of Doll People for you. Okay, this is chapter 14. It's called The Fun Crafts to the Rescue. For what seemed like hours, but was probably no more than 3/4 of an hour, Annabelle sat below Papa Doll. She talked to him, told him about the events of the past few days, although she didn't mention Self. That was private, just between her and Tiffany, and listened to his story of being carried off by the captain and dropped behind the armoire. It was terrifying, said Papa, and Annabelle felt horrible. Papa spent his life avoiding excitement, wanting only to reside quietly in the dollhouse. Then Annabelle had decided to change things, had made him venture out of the safety of his house, and look what had happened. By the time she heard Tiffany on the stairs, Annabelle had apologized 6 times to Papa. When Tiffany appeared in the living room, she was not alone. Mom, Dad, and Bailey Funcraft were following her, carrying a rope. Tiffany held one end of it, Mom held the other, and Dad and Bailey popped up the middle so that the rope never touched the floor and didn't make a sound. "What's that for?" asked Annabelle, straining to see in the dark. "And where's baby Brittany?" "She's over at your house," replied Tiffany. "Nanny is watching her. And this rope, which is Kate's jump rope, by the way, is for, well, you'll see." What, said Annabelle. "Just watch, I have a great idea." Annabelle stood back and watched. The Funcrafts must have discussed their rescue operation on the way down the stairs, because now they set to work without saying a word. First, Mom and Bailey tied one end of the rope, which was old and had lost its handles, around Tiffany's middle. This was difficult since the rope was very thick, but at last they fashioned a tight, if clumsy, knot. Then, with the rope securely around her waist, Tiffany approached the armoire. She reached for the brass pull of the lowest drawer and hoisted herself up. She looked behind her at her family and gave them the thumbs-up sign. "What's going on down there?" Papa called to Annabelle. "I'm not sure," she replied. "Tiffany's climbing up the front of the armoire with a rope. I guess we'll find out the rest in a minute." Tiffany reached for the pull of the second drawer and once again hoisted herself up. Higher and higher she climbed, the rope trailing behind her. At last she scrambled onto the top of the armoire. She scurried to the back and peered over the edge. "Mr. Doll, hello," she called. Annabelle saw her father look up in surprise. "Tiffany," he exclaimed, "that was so fast." "Well, I don't have to worry about breaking," she replied, and Annabelle felt envious, thinking of how careful she had to be with her china body. From the other side of the armoire, Dad Funcraft called, "Okay, Tiffany, we'll hold on to this end of the rope, and you drop over the edge to Mr. Doll." There was a moment of silence. Then Tiffany said, "You know what? This isn't going to work at all. The rope isn't long enough. It just reached up here. I think I'll have to pull it up and tie the other end to the top drawer." Tiffany did so with amazing speed. Then she stood at the back of the armoire and once again looked down at Papa. "Okay, Mr. Doll, here I come," she called, and she leapt over the edge. Annabelle had barely had time to pray that the knot would hold when she heard Papa say, "Oof," as Tiffany landed right on him. Okay, so there's Tiffany climbing up the side of the armoire, which remember is like a cabinet or dresser. So she's climbing up the front. And then here she is dropping back behind to get Papa. See how the rope's tied to her? She jumped down and landed right on Papa. "Is everything all right?" Annabelle called. She felt something touch her elbow and realized that Mom, Dad, and Bailey had joined her. "Yes, fine," said Papa. "It's a tight fit," added Tiffany, who braced herself between the wall and the armoire. For the next few minutes, all Annabelle could hear were grunts and bumps and little scraping sounds. Then she heard Papa say, "That did it! I'm free!" "Hold on tight then," said Tiffany. "I'm going to let go now. We should drop right to the floor." But they didn't. The rope stretching across the top of the armoire before trailing down the back was not long enough to reach the floor. Tiffany and Papa dropped another foot and hung there. "Now what?" asked Papa nervously. "We'll have to jump," said Tiffany, starting to untie the rope. "And I'll have to climb the drawer pulls until untie the other end of the rope and throw it down," said Mom cheerfully. "We can't leave a thing like that hanging around." "I'm afraid to jump," said Papa, as Tiffany removed the rope and they braced themselves against the wall. Mom reached the top of the armoire, untied the rope, and tossed it to the floor and climbed down again, and still Papa hadn't moved. "Papa, you have to jump," Annabelle said. "It's getting late. We'll have to go home now, all of us." "I'll jump first," said Tiffany. She dropped to the floor with a small clatter. "Well then, here I come," said Papa shakily. Annabelle heard the crack when he landed. "I've broken my leg," said Papa. Annabelle and the Funcrafts didn't waste another second. They ran to Papa and dragged him to the front of the armoire. Annabelle was just thinking they were being awfully noisy when she heard the pad, pad, pad of the captain. Danger! Danger! Cried Annabelle. The dolls scattered except for Papa, who couldn't stand up. In an instant, he was clamped between the captain's jaws once again, and the captain trotted off, looking smug. Help! Cried Papa. Follow them! Cried Dad. Annabelle and the Funcrafts ran after the captain, but skidded to a halt when they saw a pair of feet and fuzzy slippers approach. Hide! Hissed Annabelle. She and the Funcrafts dove behind a chair. Annabelle peered out. Captain! Exclaimed a startled voice. The feet belonged to Grandma Catherine, who turned on a light. What have you got in your mouth? Why, it's Papa Doll, you naughty kitty. Mother, is everything all right? Now Mrs. Palmer appeared, walking sleepily down the stairs. What's going on? Oh, I couldn't sleep, and I was going to the kitchen for some tea, began Grandma Catherine, when I nearly bumped into the captain, who was running around with this in his mouth. She held up Papa. Mrs. Palmer scowled. All right, I believe the captain will have to stay downstairs at night. No more sleeping in Kate's room, at least for a while. Yes, exclaimed Annabelle silently. Mrs. Palmer and Grandma Catherine examined Papa under a lamp. Oh, look, his leg is cracked, cried Mrs. Palmer. I can fix it, though, said Grandma Catherine. All it needs is a little glue. I'll do it tomorrow and put Papa back in the dollhouse while Kate is at school. She won't even know what happened. Okay, so there they are chasing the captain. The captain took Papa again. There's Annabelle. Oh, there's Annabelle. There's Tiffany and Mom and Dad Funcraft and Bailey Funcraft. Annabelle and the Funcrafts remained motionless behind the chair until the Palmer's house was quiet again. Annabelle was jubilant. The captain had been shut in the kitchen, and he wouldn't roam the second floor at night. At least not for a long time, she suspected. Better yet, Papa would be returned to the dollhouse the very next day. The dolls began to climb the stairs. Annabelle and Tiffany hung back. They pulled each other up the steps while Mom, Dad, and Bailey scurried ahead of them. What made you think of the rope? Annabelle asked, impressed. It just came to me, Tiffany replied. Well, it was a great idea, Annabelle paused. I don't know how Papa would have gotten down without you. You were the one who figured out how to look for him, Tiffany pointed out. That was brilliant. Annabelle grinned. But then she added, it almost didn't work. But in the end it did, and that's what counts. Okay, there's Tiffany and Annabelle going back up the stairs. Remember, it takes them a really long time to get up the stairs. When they reached the top of the stairs, Annabelle and the Funcrafts ran to Kate's room, climbed the stool, and told the dolls the wonderful news. Bobby asked a dozen questions. Nanny put her hand over her heart, and Mama nearly fainted. He'll be home tomorrow, Mama kept saying. That's what Grandma Catherine said, Annabelle reported. Dad Funcraft looked across Kate's room at her clock. We better leave, he said. The Palmers will be getting up soon. Well, we'll come visit you, Mama promised. Now that we won't have to worry about the captain, we'll come as soon as Papa is back and his leg has dried. We can have a celebration. Mama, can I walk Tiffany home? Asked Annabelle. Just as far as Kate's door, Mama replied. Annabelle put her hand in Tiffany's. Let's go, she said. At the doorway, Tiffany told her family to go home ahead of her. I'll be right there, I promise. I just want to talk to Annabelle for a second. When Annabelle and Tiffany were standing in the shadows by Kate's door, Tiffany said, Sump did a pretty good job. This assignment was a success, Annabelle agreed proudly. Now it's time to go back to our first assignment. Auntie Sarah, said Annabelle. Auntie Sarah. Annabelle nodded solemnly. She and Tiffany put their hands on each other's shoulders. United for Sump, they said. Tiffany turned to leave, but then Annabelle caught her hand. There's one other thing, she whispered. We have to find out who's been writing in Auntie Sarah's journal. Annabelle didn't have a chance to look at the journal until the next night. After she left Tiffany, she just barely returned to the dollhouse before Kate's alarm clock went off. In a flash, the doll family resumed the positions in which Kate had left them nearly a week earlier, the last time she had played in the dollhouse. They were still in them when, not long after Kate left for school, Annabelle heard footsteps on the stairs. Moments later, Grandma Catherine entered Kate's room with Papa Doll cradled gently in her hands. Annabelle didn't move, but she lowered her eyes ever so slightly for a better view. Well now, Grandma Catherine said as she stood before the dollhouse, what an adventure you had, Papa. Your leg should be as good as new very quickly, though. Grandma Catherine placed Papa on the couch in the parlor. Then she left Kate's room. Annabelle listened to her footsteps. She heard them pad down the hallway, then creak down the stairs. When she was fairly certain that Grandma Catherine had reached the bottom step, she cried softly, Papa! And Mama murmured, Is your leg truly all right? Annabelle could not help herself. She leapt up and ran for the stairs, pulling Bobby behind her. It'll just be a few minutes, she called over her shoulder before Nanny could protest. She needn't have bothered. Nanny followed her down the stairs. Uncle Doll hurried out of his room. Everyone except baby Betsy, who was asleep, gathered around Papa. He stood up to show the dolls that his leg was fine, or nearly. It needed to dry a bit longer. Mama hugged him. Nanny kissed his cheek. Annabelle and Bobby hugged him. Then Uncle Doll held out his hand and shook Papa Doll's. I'm sorry, he said. I apologize. I apologize, too. I think we both said some things we didn't mean. We had a disagreement, said Uncle Doll. Papa glanced across the room at the Barbie camper. Are you, he started to say. No, Uncle Doll interrupted him. I moved back home again. I miss my room, and Barbie's furniture isn't terribly comfortable. There's Annabelle and her brother Bobby hugging. Papa just got home. Bobby stepped forward and touched the crack of Papa's pants. Can I see the crack? He said. Bobby, exclaimed Nanny, but Papa lifted the leg of his trousers and pointed out the crack. It was no thicker than a hair. A wave of relief washed over Annabelle. After a few more hugs, and after Papa had described 4 times how it felt to be clamped between a cat's jaws, and after he told his tale of adventure from his capture to his rescue, Mama said, well, I suppose we should return to, oh, please just tell us about the captain's teeth once more. Please, begged Bobby. Tonight, Papa promised, and the dolls returned to their positions. Okay, so I want you guys to write in your journals today about the doll people, okay? So I came up with this question. How does Papa feel? All right, I know you guys have journals that got sent home, and I hope you've been writing in them and practicing your writing. So today I want you to write about how Papa felt in this chapter. Remember, when we answer a question, I don't want to see the question word in it. So this word, how, I'm not going to see that in your answer, okay? How does Papa feel? We're going to answer it. We're going to say, Papa feels, and then you can answer, okay? Papa feels. You might say, Papa feels scared, and talk about how scared he was when the captain had him. You might say, Papa feels relieved, how relieved he feels to be back with the dolls, or how happy he is, or how frightened he was before. Anything you want about how Papa felt in the last chapter or two, from the time that the captain first took him, to when he was stuck between the wall and the armoire, to when the captain took him again, and when he hurt his leg, and then when he got back to the dollhouse. So whatever you guys want to write, if you want, you can have your parents, grandma, whoever's at home, take a picture of your writing and text it to me, okay? And I'll look at it and I'll send you some feedback, okay? I miss you guys so much. Make sure you're reading and writing and practicing that math every day, okay? So that when I see you again at school, we're right back where we started and you guys haven't forgotten how to do that stuff, okay? All right, have a great day. Bye, guys.